Useless? Jeremy Holt's venomous shout echoed as he hurled a crumpled sausage biscuit at Celeste Washington's face, crumbs scattering across the bank's marble floor. Her cheek stung, but her eyes burned with defiance. She'd just saved a billionaire and his daughter from a car accident. Yet here she was, humiliated for a late breakfast. Would her courage cost her everything, or spark a life-changing twist? Welcome to Hero in the Heat, a tale of bravery and redemption. Where are you tuning in from? Drop your city in the comments and guess. Will Celeste find justice, love, or both? Hit that subscribe button to catch our latest stories and join the journey. Stay hooked. Will her boss's cruelty break her? Or will a billionaire's gratitude rewrite her future? Share your thoughts below, like, and subscribe for more epic tales. The Atlanta sun rose like a furnace, its heat already clawing at the city by 8 a.m., wrapping Celeste Washington in a stifling embrace as she stepped off the bus onto Peachtree Street. Her long black hair, a cascade of midnight silk, swayed against her shoulders, framing a face so striking it could halt conversations. High cheekbones, deep brown eyes that held both fire and fatigue, and skin that glowed under the morning light. At 28, Celeste was a financial analyst at First National Bank, her mind a sharp blade slicing through cash flows and balance sheets with precision that kept the bank's ledgers pristine. Yet to her boss, Jeremy Holt, she was nothing more than an errand girl, her brilliance buried beneath his disdain. The bank's glass doors loomed ahead, their polished surface reflecting the city's chaos, horns blaring, pedestrians weaving. Through the morning rush, Celeste's heels clicked against the pavement, each step a metronome counting down to the inevitable. Her navy blazer clung to her frame, a second skin against the humidity, but it was the weight of her life that pressed harder. Rent was due in 5 days, a relentless $1,200 shadow over her cramped apartment. Her younger brother, Marcus, needed tuition for Morehouse College, his freshman year draining her savings. The job market was a minefield, and her 20-an-hour position was a fragile lifeline in an economy that chewed up dreamers and spat out survivors. Inside, the bank's air-conditioned chill offered no relief from the tension coiling in her chest. The marble lobby gleamed, its sterile elegance a stark contrast to the storm brewing within her. She hadn't even reached her desk when Jeremy's voice cut through the hum of ringing phones and clicking keyboards. "Celeste!" His bark was sharp, a whip crack from his corner office. She froze, her fingers tightening around her purse strap. Jeremy Holt, 45, balding with a suit that strained against his paunch, wielded his middle manager power like a sledgehammer. "Sausage biscuit, black coffee, no sugar, Mabel's Diner, move it." His eyes, small and venomous, didn't meet hers, already back on his computer screen, dismissing her existence. "Yes, Mr. Holt," Celeste said, her voice steady despite the ember of anger flickering in her gut. 2 years she'd endured this. His snide remarks, his blame for his own errors, his refusal to see her as anything but a servant. She'd caught a $50,000 discrepancy in his budget last quarter, saving his department from an audit, yet he'd never thanked her. Instead, he'd sneered, "Don't let it go to your head." Her dreams of an MBA, of rising to a corner office of her own, lay buried under his cruelty and her family's needs. Marcus's hopeful texts, "Sis aced my econ quiz," kept her tethered to this job, each insult swallowed for his future. She turned, her heels echoing as she headed back into the heat. The city pulsed around her, a living beast of honking cabs and chattering tourists. Peachtree Street was a gauntlet, delivery bikes swerving, suits rushing to meetings, the air thick with exhaust and ambition. Celeste's phone buzzed in her pocket, a relentless nag. She didn't need to check to know it was Jeremy. "Where's my food? Don't screw this up." His texts were a constant lash, each one a jab at her competence. She quickened her pace, her braid bouncing against her back, sweat beading on her forehead. Mabel's Diner was 4 blocks away, its neon sign a distant beacon of Jeremy's absurd standards. Only their overpriced coffee would do. Starbucks was trash. He'd snapped her first month, tossing a cup in the bin while she stood humiliated. Her mind churned as she dodged a cyclist, her hand clutching her phone like a lifeline. This wasn't just about coffee or biscuits. It was about survival. Marcus's tuition was $3,000 a semester, and her mother's old medical bills still haunted her bank account. Celeste had been 16 when she'd aced AP Calculus, dreaming of Wharton or Emory, of crunching numbers for Fortune 500 companies. But life had other plans: her mother's illness, her father's absence, and Marcus's wide-eyed trust that his big sister could do anything. She'd traded textbooks for double shifts, her dreams a flicker she couldn't afford to chase. "Move it, lady!" a delivery guy shouted, his cart nearly clipping her. She sidestepped, heart racing, and pushed on. Mabel's diner loomed closer, its glass windows glinting. Inside, the air was thick with grease and chatter, the line mercifully short. The barista, a bored 20-something with a nose ring, took her order with a half-smile. "Sausage biscuit, black coffee, no sugar," Celeste said. Her voice clipped, her eyes on her watch. 8:20 a.m. She had 20 minutes to get back before Jeremy's patience, thin as it was, snapped. The bag's warmth seeped through her fingers. As she stepped back into the street, the coffee cup burning against her palm, she wove through the crowd, her mind already in Jeremy's office, bracing Yuensuda system, imagining his scowl, his demands looping in her head. "Don't be late. Don't mess this up." Her stomach knotted, not from the heat, but from the weight of his words. She was invisible to him, just a tool for his convenience. Yet she kept moving, her heels pounding the pavement, driven by necessity. The bank's glass doors were a finish line she dreaded crossing, but there was no choice. Marcus needed her mother needed her, and dreams didn't pay the bills. At Mabel's, she grabbed the order, the barista's indifference a small mercy. She checked her watch again, 8:30 a.m. She could make it if she ran. The city's pulse seemed to mock her urgency, its chaos indifferent to her struggle. Her phone buzzed again, and she risked a glance. "Jeremy, you're cutting it close, Celeste." "Hurry up." Her jaw clenched, but she typed a quick "on my way" and shoved the phone back, her steps quickening. She wasn't just running for coffee. She was running to hold her life together, one demeaning task at a time. The Atlanta street throbbed with life at 8:35 a.m., a cacophony of horns and hurried footsteps. But for Celeste Washington, the world narrowed to the steaming coffee cup and sausage biscuit bag burning against her palms. Her navy heels struck the pavement, each step a race against Jeremy Holt's ticking clock. Sweat beaded on her forehead, her long black hair swaying like a dark river down her back. She was halfway to First National Bank, the city's pulse. A relentless drumbeat when a sickening crash shattered the morning. Metal screamed, glass exploded, and the air itself seemed to flinch. Celeste froze, her breath catching as her eyes snapped to the intersection ahead. A pickup truck, its grille, crumpled like paper, had T-boned a sleek black sedan, flipping it onto its side with a grotesque groan. Gasoline glistened on the asphalt, its sharp, acrid scent cutting through the humidity. Screams erupted, raw and jagged, as a crowd surged forward, not to help, but to gawk. Phones rose like a forest of cold, gleaming eyes, capturing the chaos. "It's gonna blow," a man shouted, his voice high with panic. Yet no one moved closer. Celeste's heart slammed against her ribs, the coffee trembling in her grip. Through the sedan's fractured windshield, she saw them. A white man, bloodied and dazed, slumped against the steering wheel, and a young girl, no older than 8, strapped in a booster seat, her cries piercing the din like a siren. The biscuit bag slipped from Celeste's hand, hitting the pavement with a soft thud, its contents forgotten. Instinct, raw and unyielding, surged through her veins. She kicked off her heels, bare feet slapping the scorching asphalt, and sprinted toward the wreck. The crowd's murmurs faded, their warnings, "Stay back," mere static against her focus. Gasoline fumes stung her nose, a ticking bomb. But her eyes locked on the girl, her pigtails limp, her small hands clawing at the seatbelt. "Call 911, Celeste barked, her voice slicing through the noise. Heads turned, but only a few fumbled for their phones, fingers trembling as if the I act absolved them. She dropped to her knees beside the sedan, glass crunching under her, biting through her stockings. The passenger window gaped like a jagged wound, shards glinting in the sunlight. "I'm coming," she shouted, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her. She crawled through, her blazer snagging on twisted metal, her arms scraping against glass. Inside, the world tilted upside down, claustrophobic, the air thick with the engine's ominous hiss. The girl's sobs were a beacon, pulling Celeste closer. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, her tone soft but firm. "I'm Celeste, you're okay." The girl's eyes, wide with terror, found hers. "My daddy. He's hurt," she whimpered, her voice small but desperate. Celeste's gaze flicked to the man. Blood trickled down his temple, his breathing shallow, his hands limp. "Lily, right?" she said, reading the name embroidered on the girl's backpack. "I've got you first, then your dad." Her college CPR training surged to the forefront, a lifeline from a life she'd left behind. She unbuckled Lily's seatbelt, her fingers precise despite the tremor in her hands. The girl clung to her, and Celeste passed her through the window to a bystander, a woman who'd finally stepped forward, her face pale. "Keep her safe," Celeste ordered, her voice a whip. The woman nodded, clutching Lily as the girl's cries softened. Turning back, Celeste faced the man. His eyes fluttered, unfocused, a weak groan escaping his lips. "My daughter, Lily," he rasped, his voice barely audible over the engine's hiss. "She's safe," Celeste said, crawling closer, glass digging into her knees. She braced his neck with one arm, her touch firm but gentle, knowing a wrong move could paralyze him. Gasoline fumes screamed danger, but abandoning him risked worse. Her heart pounded, a drumbeat of urgency as she assessed the damage. His legs were pinned under the crumpled dashboard, the seatbelt taut across his chest. "Stay with me," she urged, her free hand fumbling for the buckle. It jammed, stubborn, mocking her efforts. Her muscles, honed from years of carrying Marcus's textbooks in her mother's grocery bag, strained as she yanked. A click, release felt like a small victory. The engine's hiss grew louder, a menacing whisper, but Celeste didn't falter. She slid her arms under his shoulders, her body screaming with effort as she dragged him inch by agonizing inch. His weight pulled at her, her knees grinding against glass, but she gritted her teeth, her mind a razor's edge of focus. The crowd's murmurs were a distant hum, the world narrowing to the man in her grip, the ticking clock of leaking fuel. She backed out through the window, pulling him free, her shoulders burning as she laid him flat on the sidewalk, still cradling his neck. "Breathe," she whispered, checking his pulse, faint but there. She tilted his head slightly, ensuring his airway stayed open, her hands trembling but precise. Sirens wailed, cutting through the crowd's growing chatter. Paramedics burst onto the scene at 8:42 a.m., their movements swift and practiced. A medic knelt beside her, his voice clipped. "What have we got?" Celeste didn't hesitate. Male, mid-30s, head trauma, possible concussion, legs pinned, pulse weak but stable. I stabilized his neck, kept his airway clear. The medic nodded, his eyes flicking over the man, then back to her. "You did good. Most would have botched the spine." Paramedics slid the man onto a stretcher, Lily clinging to a female medic nearby, her eyes locked on her father. Celeste stood, her hands smeared with blood and grime, her stockings torn. Her blazer ripped. The crowd's whispers washed over her, some awed, others still filming, their lenses cold and intrusive. Her gaze fell to the spilled biscuit bag a few feet away, its dark stain mocking her. Jeremy's voice loomed in her mind. You're cutting it close, but it felt distant, drowned by the adrenaline still coursing through her. She'd faced death and won, but the bank waited, Jeremy's wrath a storm on the horizon. Her bare feet, stung on the hot pavement, her heels abandoned somewhere in the chaos. She retrieved them, her hands shaking as she slipped them on, the coffee cup cold now, a useless anchor. The weight of her choice settled in. She'd saved 2 lives, but at what cost to her own? The clock on the First National Bank's marble lobby read 9:10 a.m., its steady tick a cruel reminder of the time Celeste Washington had lost. Her bare feet, now back in her scuffed navy heels, clicked unevenly as she crossed the polished floor. The crumpled sausage biscuit bag clutched in one hand, the cold coffee cup in the other. Her blouse was stained with grime, her arms stung from glass cuts, and her long black hair, once a sleek cascade, hung in disarray, strands clinging to her sweat-dampened neck. The adrenaline from the crash still thrummed in her veins, but the weight of reality crashed harder. She'd saved a man and his daughter from a gasoline-soaked wreck, yet Jeremy Holt's office door loomed like a guillotine, his wrath a certainty she couldn't outrun. The lobby's sterile chill did nothing to ease the heat rising in her chest. Colleagues glanced her way, their eyes darting from her torn stockings to the blood smears on her hands, but none spoke. The hum of keyboards and murmured calls felt alien, a world apart from the screams and sirens still ringing in her ears. Celeste's breath hitched as she approached Jeremy's corner office, its frosted glass a barrier she'd crossed too many times, always with her head bowed. Not today. She knocked, a sharp rap, and pushed through, her heart pounding like a war drum. Jeremy sat behind his mahogany desk, his balding head gleaming under the fluorescence, his suit straining as he leaned forward, a pen gripped like a weapon. His small, venomous eyes snapped to the crumpled bag, then to her disheveled state, and his face twisted into a snarl. "You're late, and this is a mess," he roared, snatching the biscuit bag from her hand. Before she could speak, he hurled it, the sausage biscuit striking her cheek with a humiliating thud, crumbs scattering across her blazer. The sting was sharp, but his words cut deeper. "Useless. Can't you do anything right?" The office seemed to shrink, his voice a thunderclap that drowned out the distant memory of the medic's praise. Celeste stood tall, her jaw clenched, her brown eyes blazing despite the tremor in her hands. "There was an accident, Mr. Holt," she said, her voice low but steady, each word a defiance against his venom. "A car flipped. I helped get people out." "Excuses," Jeremy spat, rising from his chair, his face reddening like a bruise. "I don't pay you to play hero. Celeste, I pay you to fetch my breakfast and do your damn job." His finger jabbed the air, inches from her face, his breath sour with coffee. "You think you're special now? You're nothing here." The words landed like blows, each one echoing the insults he'd flung for 2 years. Lazy, incompetent, good for coffee runs and not much else. Her mind flashed to Marcus, her brother, his hopeful texts about college, and the rent notice pinned to her fridge. She needed this job. It's $20 an hour, her only tether to stability in a city that devoured the vulnerable. She swallowed her retort, her nails digging into her palms, drawing blood. "Get to your desk," Jeremy sneered, tossing the coffee cup into the trash with a clatter. "Or you're done. No more chances." Celeste turned, her heels clicking, each step a battle to keep her composure. The office buzzed around her, colleagues' whispers trailing like shadows. She sank into her cubicle, her hands trembling as she set the cold coffee aside, its dark stain mocking her. Her laptop screen flickered to life, but her mind was elsewhere. On the man's bloodied face, Lily's terrified cries, the medic's nod. She'd saved lives, stared down death in a gasoline haze, yet here she was, reduced to crumbs on her. "Jeek." The clock ticked toward 9:30 a.m., the office settling into its rhythm, but the air shifted when the glass doors swung open. A man strode in, his navy vest crisp, his presence a quiet storm that silenced the room. Heads turned, whispers, erupting. He was tall, his dark hair neatly combed, his eyes scanning with purpose. Celeste's breath caught as he approached her desk, his polished shoes stopping inches from her chair. "Ms. Celeste Washington?" His voice was calm but commanding, a steady anchor in the office's hum. "I'm Ethan Brooks, assistant to Mr. Maxwell Reed, CEO of First National Bank. You saved his life and his daughter's today. He'd like to thank you personally. May I arrange a dinner?" Celeste blinked, her mind reeling. Maxwell Reed, the billionaire whose name adorned the bank's highest floor, was the man she'd pulled from the wreck. Her throat tightened, the weight of the morning shifting under this surreal revelation. Yes, she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. That'd be fine. Ethan handed her a sleek business card, its embossed letters catching the light. Tomorrow, 7 p.m., Lux Bistro. Mr. Reed will meet you there. He turned to leave, but not before Jeremy emerged from his office, his face morphing into a fake smile, his eyes darting nervously. Celeste, you didn't tell me, Jeremy said, his voice oily, his hands clasped as if in prayer. What a hero. His insincerity was palpable, his fear of Ethan's connection to Maxwell Reed betraying him. Celeste's stomach twisted, her earlier humiliation burning fresh. She said nothing, her gaze fixed on Ethan, who regarded Jeremy with cool indifference. Mr. Reed looks forward to meeting you, Ms. Washington, Ethan said, his tone pointed before striding out. The office buzzed in his wake, colleagues' glances now laced with awe, but Celeste felt no triumph. Jeremy's false praise was a mask, his wrath merely delayed. She tucked the card into her purse, its edges sharp against her fingers, a fragile lifeline in a storm she knew was far from over. Her hands still shook as she opened her laptop, Jeremy's sneer lingering like a bruise. The bank's hum resumed, but the weight of her choice pressed harder. She'd saved 2 lives, but Jeremy wouldn't care. He'd see only her failure, the late breakfast, the crumpled bag, her brother's tuition, her rent, her mother's. Old medical bills loomed like storm clouds. She straightened, her jaw set. She'd face Jeremy's next move, but the fire in her chest burned brighter now. She wasn't just his errand girl, not after today. The Atlanta skyline glittered against the dusk at 7 miles p.m., its lights casting a golden glow over Lux Bistro's sleek glass facade. Celeste Washington stood outside, her breath shallow, her heart a restless drumbeat. Her golden silk dress clung to her curves, its pearl beads catching the restaurant's ambient light like stars against her dark skin. Her long black hair flowed down her back, a cascade of midnight that framed her. Striking features, high cheekbones, eyes that held both fire and vulnerability. At 28, she was a vision, but the weight of the day before clung to her like humidity. She'd saved a billionaire and his daughter from a burning wreck, yet Jeremy Holt's hurled biscuit and venomous words, useless, still stung her cheek and pride. Tonight, she stood on the edge of something unknown, Ethan Brooks's invitation, a lifeline she barely trusted. The restaurant's glass doors hissed open, and the hostess, a young woman with a practiced smile, eyed Celeste's scuffed heels and worn purse, her gaze lingering a moment too long. Reservation? She asked, her tone clipped, a subtle challenge. Celeste straightened, her voice steady. Carter, party of 3, for Maxwell Reed. The Bach? Hostess's smile faltered, her eyes flicking to her tablet. Right this way, she muttered, leading Celeste through the dining room, where crystal chandeliers cast soft light over linen-clad tables. The air smelled of truffle and wealth, a world Celeste had only glimpsed from the outside. Her heels sank into the plush carpet, each step a reminder of her borrowed courage, her purse clutching Ethan's card like a talisman. The private booth overlooked the city, its floor-to-ceiling windows framing Atlanta's pulsing heart. Celeste sank into the plush chair, her fingers brushing the silk of her dress, its $200 price tag a rare splurge from a thrift store sale. The menu's prices, $40 for a salad, $75 for steak, made her stomach lurch. She'd never eaten anywhere this lavish, her budget stretched thin by rent and Marcus's tuition. Her hand smoothed the napkin, a nervous tick as she waited, her mind replaying Jeremy's cruelty, the crowd's cold lenses, the medic's nod. She was here because she'd saved Maxwell Reed, the bank's billionaire CEO. But what did he want? Gratitude or something more? At 7:10 p.m., the dining room's murmur shifted, and Celeste's breath caught as Jeremy Holt strutted in, his mistress, a peroxide blonde in a too-tight dress, clinging to his arm. His bald head gleamed under the chandeliers, his smirk a blade. as he spotted her. He sauntered over, his voice loud enough to draw stares. "Well, look at you, Celeste, playing dress-up," he taunted, leaning close, his breath sour with wine. "Think you're special now, dining with the big shots? You're still just my coffee girl, late with a crumpled biscuit." His mistress giggled, a sharp grating sound, and the room seemed to shrink, eyes turning to Celeste, their judgment heavy. Her nails dug into her palms, her retort rising. "I saved lives, you coward." But before she could speak, a deep voice cut through the air like a thunderclap. "Enough." Maxwell Reed stepped forward, his tailored charcoal suit impeccable, his presence a quiet storm that silenced the room. Beside him, 8-year-old Lily clutched his hand, her pigtails bouncing, her eyes wide but fierce. Maxwell's dark gaze locked on Jeremy, cold and unyielding. "Ms. Washington saved my life and my daughter's yesterday. She's my guest, my hero. You, however, are a disgrace." He nodded to the restaurant's security, 2 broad-shouldered men in black who materialized at his signal. "Escort him out." Jeremy's face drained of color, his mistress shrinking back as he stammered, "Mr. Reed, I didn't mean—" But the guards were already moving, their hands firm on his arms. "You can't do this!" Jeremy spat, his voice cracking as they steered him toward the exit, his mistress trailing, humiliated. The room buzzed, diners whispering, but Maxwell's focus shifted to Celeste, his eyes softening. "I'm sorry you had to endure that," he said, settling into the booth across from her, Lily sliding in beside him. The girl grinned, her face bright. "You're so pretty, Miss Celeste, and so brave." Celeste's tension eased, a smile, breaking through her nerves. "Thank you, Lily," she said, her voice warm. Maxwell's gaze held hers, steady and sincere. "I saw your name tag in the wreck," he said, his tone low, grounded. "I knew I had to find you. Thank you, Celeste, for saving us." His gratitude was a balm, soothing the raw edges of Jeremy's insults. The waiter arrived, and Maxwell ordered with ease: grilled salmon, truffle risotto, a sparkling lemonade for Lily, waving off Celeste's hesitation at the prices. "Tonight's on me," he said, a faint smile curving his lips. The food arrived, its flavors rich and unfamiliar, a far cry from the instant noodles in her pantry. Lily chattered about her pet rabbit, Mr. Floppy, her stories pulling laughter from Celeste, a sound she hadn't heard from herself in weeks. Maxwell listened, his elbows on the table, his suit jacket creasing slightly, a man at ease in a world Celeste barely understood. "Your courage yesterday," he said, leaning forward. "The way you stayed calm, saved Lily first, protected my spine. It's extraordinary. Most would have frozen. You didn't." Celeste's cheeks warmed, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. "I just did what felt right," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I couldn't leave you there." Maxwell's smile was slow, genuine, lighting his face. "That's what makes you remarkable," he said. "I'd like to see you again, Celeste, if you're willing. No pressure, just a chance to know you." His words hung in the air, a quiet invitation that sent her heart tripping. Lily clapped, delighted. "Say yes, Miss Celeste," she chirped, her lemonade nearly spilling. Celeste laughed, the sound easing the knot in her chest. "I'd like that," she said, meeting Maxwell's gaze, her voice steady despite the flutter within. As they ate, the conversation flowed. Lily's school plays, Maxwell's love of jazz, Celeste's knack for numbers. For the first time in years, she felt seen, not as Jeremy's errand girl, but as a woman with fire and purpose. The evening ended with a promise, a weekend outing to the zoo. Maxwell walked her to the door, Lily skipping ahead, and his hand brushed hers, a fleeting warmth that lingered. "I'll be in touch," he said, his driver holding the SUV's door. Celeste nodded, her heart full but uncertain. As she stepped into the night, Atlanta's skyline sparkling, she wondered what this meant: gratitude, friendship, or something deeper. Jeremy's humiliation faded, but Maxwell's words echoed, a spark of hope in a life too long dimmed. The Atlanta sun dipped low, casting a warm amber glow over Piedmont Park as Celeste Washington stepped onto the grass, her sneakers a welcome. Relief from the heels that had carried her through First National Bank's unforgiving marble floors. It was a Saturday, 3 weeks after her dinner with Maxwell Reed at Lux Bistro, and the memory of Jeremy Holt's public humiliation still lingered, a faint bruise on her pride. But today, the park's sprawling oaks and the laughter of children, playing frisbee felt like a different world. Celeste's long black hair swayed loosely, framing her radiant face, her casual jeans and white blouse a stark contrast to the golden silk dress of that night. At 28, she carried a quiet strength, her beauty matched only by the fire in her brown eyes, a fire Maxwell had seen when she'd pulled him and his daughter Lily from a gasoline-soaked wreck. Maxwell waited by a picnic table, his tailored jacket swapped for a navy sweater, his dark eyes lighting up as he spotted her. Lily, 8 years old and all pigtails, bounded over, her sneakers kicking up dust. "Miss Celeste," she squealed, throwing her arms around Celeste's waist. "We're going to the zoo, you're coming, right?" Celeste laughed, the sound bright and unburdened, a rare gift after months of Jeremy's venom. "Wouldn't miss it, Lily," she said, ruffling the girl's hair. Maxwell's smile was warm, disarming as he gestured to a picnic basket. "Thought we'd start here," he said, his voice steady, "then hit the zoo. Lily's been talking about the pandas all week." They settled on a blanket, the basket spilling sandwiches, lemonade, and chocolate chip cookies Lily proudly declared she'd helped bake. The park hummed with life, joggers, dog walkers, a jazz band playing in the distance. But Celeste's world narrowed to the man and girl before her. Maxwell's presence was a quiet anchor, his billionaire status invisible in his easy laughter, as Lily recounted her rabbit, Mr. Floppy, stealing carrots from the fridge. Celeste shared stories of her brother, Marcus, his college antics at Morehouse, and the way he'd text her memes to lighten her long shifts at the bank. For the first time in years, she felt unjudged, her guard lowering with each shared smile. At the zoo, Lily tugged Celeste's hand, dragging her to the panda exhibit, her chatter a constant stream. "They're so fluffy," she gasped, pressing her face to the glass. Maxwell trailed behind, his gaze softening as he watched them. "She adores you," he said quietly, catching up as Lily darted to the next exhibit. "You're a natural with her." Celeste's cheeks warmed, her heart tripping over the sincerity in his voice. "She's easy to love," she replied, meeting his eyes. There was something there, gratitude, yes, but also a spark she wasn't ready to name. At the bank, Jeremy's demeanor had shifted since Maxwell's intervention, his oily charm masking fear of the CEO's influence. But his subtle jabs persisted. Extra reports dumped on her desk, snide comments about her heroics when no one was listening. Celeste endured, her focus split between work and the MBA program Maxwell had offered to fund at Emory. She'd enrolled 2 weeks ago, her evenings now filled with textbooks and spreadsheets, her dreams of leadership rekindled. Maxwell's belief in her was a lifeline, but it came with questions. Why her? Was this just gratitude for saving his life, or something deeper? Their outings grew frequent. Lunch at a food truck, Maxwell's tailored suits traded for jeans. Late-night calls when Celeste couldn't sleep, his voice a steady balm to her stress. One evening, over tacos at a downtown stand, he leaned forward, his elbows on the wobbly table. "I want to know you, Celeste," he said, his tone earnest. "Beyond the wreck, beyond the bank, what drives you?" Her breath caught, the question peeling back layers she'd kept buried. "My mom," she said finally, her voice soft. "She was sick when I was a teen, in and out of hospitals. I felt helpless, numbers, finance. They're my way to control the chaos, to make sure Marcus and I never feel that helpless again." Maxwell listened, his eyes never straying, and she found herself asking, "What about you? Why stay in banking when you could do anything?" He smiled wryly. "Family legacy. The Reed name comes with a leash, expectations I didn't choose. But I'm carving my path like you. His honesty cracked something open in her, a trust she hadn't expected. She saw his vulnerabilities, the pressure of raising Lily alone, the weight of a corporate empire. He saw hers, the scars of Jeremy's cruelty, the fear of failing Marcus. Their conversations wove a bond, unspoken but tangible, in shared glances and lingering silences. Lily's affection was a thread tying them closer. At a park playdate, she braided Celeste's hair, her small fingers clumsy but determined. "You're like a superhero," Lily said, her eyes wide. "You saved me and Daddy." Celeste's heart swelled, but she deflected. "Just did what anyone would." Lily shook her head. "Nuh-uh, you're special." Maxwell, watching from a bench, grinned, his presence a quiet support. He'd bring coffee to her study sessions, quizzing her on financial models, his belief unwavering. "You're going to run this city one day," he'd say, his tone half teasing, half certain. Yet, doubt lingered. Celeste felt the pull of something deeper, his hand brushing hers, the warmth in his laughter. But love was a risk she'd never taken. Jeremy's voice still echoed, "You're nothing," clashing with Maxwell's quiet faith. At night, alone, in her cramped apartment, she'd trace the edges of his business card, its promise unclear. Their bond was real, but what did it mean? Friendship? Gratitude? Or a spark that could upend her carefully guarded world? As she packed her books for another Emory class, her phone lit up with Maxwell's text. "Zoo again Saturday?" Lily's insisting. She smiled, typing yes, her heart teetering on the edge of something vast, thrilling, and terrifying. The fluorescent hum of First National Bank's office floor was a cold, familiar drone as Celeste Washington slipped through. The glass doors at 8 a.m., her navy blazer crisp despite the exhaustion tugging at her bones. Her long black hair, pulled into a sleek bun, framed her striking face, but her brown eyes carried a quiet storm. 3 months had passed since she'd saved Maxwell Reed and his daughter Lily from a fiery wreck, and the dinner at Lux Bistro, where Maxwell had banished her tormentor Jeremy Holt from the restaurant, had shifted something in her world. Yet the bank remained a battlefield, Jeremy's presence a lingering shadow. At 28, Celeste was no longer just the errand girl. She was an Emory MBA student, her nights filled with textbooks and ambition, funded by Maxwell's belief in her. But here, under Jeremy's gaze, she was still a target. The office buzzed with its usual rhythm, phones ringing, keyboards clacking, but an undercurrent of tension followed Celeste to her cubicle. Colleagues' glances darted her way, their whispers a mix of awe and curiosity since her viral heroics and Maxwell's intervention. Her desk was a small fortress, stacked with spreadsheets she'd perfected, her financial acumen catching errors. Jeremy claimed as his own. She powered on her laptop, bracing for the inevitable. Jeremy's corner office loomed, its frosted glass door a portal to his cruelty. Since Maxwell's public rebuke, Jeremy's demeanor had shifted, his oily charm a thin mask over his fear of the billionaire CEO. But his malice hadn't vanished. It had sharpened, cloaked in subtlety. At 9:15 a.m., Jeremy's voice crackled. Through the intercom, a blade wrapped in false courtesy. "Celeste, my office now." Her stomach knotted, but she stood, smoothing her blazer, her heels clicking with purpose. Each step was a defiance against the fear gnawing her insides. She knocked once, sharply, and entered. Jeremy sat behind his mahogany desk, his balding head gleaming, his suit straining as he leaned back, a stack of reports before him like a stage for his cruelty. His small, venomous eyes flicked over her, a smirk twitching his lips. "These quarterly projections," he said, tossing a file. "Across the desk, they're sloppy. Fix them by noon, and don't expect me to hold your hand." Celeste's jaw tightened. She'd reviewed those projections last week, catching a $10,000 error Jeremy had missed. "They're accurate, Mr. Holt," she said, her voice steady, edged with steel. "I double-checked the cash flows." His smirk faltered, his face reddening. "Don't talk back," he snapped, his tone low, vicious. "You're lucky to still be here after your little stunt with the coffee." The jab stung, a reminder of the biscuit he'd hurled at her face, but Celeste held his gaze. her heart pounding. Maxwell's influence hung over Jeremy like a sword, but it didn't stop his petty power plays. She returned to her desk, the file heavy in her hands. Her coworker, Lisa, leaned over, her voice a whisper. "He's been like this all week, Celeste. Watch yourself." Celeste nodded, her throat tight, and dove into the reports, her fingers flying over the keys. But her mind drifted to Maxwell, his steady presence at the zoo, his laughter over tacos, his late-night calls that eased her stress. He'd become her anchor, his belief in her a shield against Jeremy's venom. Yet the office was a minefield. At 11 a.m., Jeremy emailed her a new task: reorganize the client database by the end of the day, a job that would take hours. "Don't screw it up," he wrote, the words a digital lash. Her phone buzzed, a welcome distraction. "Maxwell. Coffee. At 3? Got a break between classes?" She smiled, typing yes, her heart lifting. His visits to Emory were frequent now, his coffee runs fueling her study sessions. Last week, he'd sat across from her in a campus cafe, quizzing her on financial models, his grin infectious. "You're going to outshine us all," he'd said, his faith a spark that kept her going. But back in the office, Jeremy's shadow loomed. At 1 p.m., he strode by her cubicle, dropping a stack of invoices on her desk. "Sort these by tomorrow," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "No whining." Celeste's nails dug into her palms, her anger a live wire. She thought of Lily, braiding her hair in the park, calling her a superhero. She thought of Maxwell's quiet confession over tacos. "You're carving your path, like me." She wasn't Jeremy's pawn anymore, but quitting wasn't an option. Not with Marcus's tuition due, her rent looming. She worked through lunch, her stomach growling, the invoices a blur. Jeremy's game was clear. He couldn't fire her, not with Maxwell watching, but he could grind her down, task by task. At 2:30 p.m., the office door swung open, and Maxwell strode in, his navy coat unbuttoned, Lily skipping beside him with a drawing in hand. The room stilled, heads turning. "Miss Celeste," Lily called, darting to her desk, holding up a crayon sketch of a panda. "For you." Celeste's heart softened, her exhaustion fading. Maxwell's eyes met hers, warm but searching. "Thought we'd surprise you before coffee," he said, his voice low. Jeremy emerged, his face a mask of false warmth. "Mr. Reed, what a pleasure," he said, his hands clasped. Maxwell ignored him, kneeling beside Celeste's desk. "Rough?" Deary asked. His tone meant only for her. She nodded, the weight of Jeremy's tasks pressing hard. "He's pushing," she admitted, glancing at the invoices. Maxwell's jaw tightened, but his smile stayed. "You're stronger than he'll ever know," he said, standing. To Jeremy, his voice turned cool. "Ms. Washington's work is exemplary. I expect her to be treated as such." Jeremy stammered, his charm crumbling, and Maxwell led Celeste and Lily out, the office's whispers trailing them. At the cafe over lattes, Maxwell listened as Celeste vented. Jeremy's subtle cruelties, the database, the invoices. "He's scared of you," she said, half laughing. Maxwell's hand brushed hers, a fleeting warmth. "He should be," he said, his eyes holding hers. "But you're not alone in this." Lily chattered about school, her drawing pinned to Celeste's bag, a reminder of the bond growing beyond the bank's walls. As they parted, Maxwell's text lit her phone. "You've got this. Call me tonight." Celeste smiled, her resolve hardening. Jeremy's games were petty compared to the fire Maxwell and Lily kindled in her, a fire she'd carry, no matter what came next. The Atlanta sky burned with stars, a rare clarity cutting through the city's haze as Celeste Washington walked along Piedmont Park's oak-lined paths, the evening air cool against her skin. It had been a year since she'd pulled Maxwell Reed and his daughter Lily from a wrecked sedan, a moment that had reshaped her life. Her long black hair flowed freely, catching the moonlight, her casual jeans and emerald sweater a far cry from the bank's stifling blazers. At 29, Celeste was no longer just First National's errand girl. She was an Emory MBA student, her brilliance in finance blooming under Maxwell's unwavering support. But tonight, as she strolled beside him, Lily skipping ahead, her heart teetered on the edge of something vast, a feeling she'd resisted naming despite the warmth of his glances and the weight of their shared moments. The park was alive with top sounds, crickets chirping, distant laughter, the rustle of leaves underfoot. Lily darted toward a clearing, her pigtails bouncing, clutching a small velvet box Maxwell had slipped her earlier, her giggles betraying a secret. "Miss Celeste, look at the stars," she called, pointing skyward, her 9-year-old energy, a spark in the dusk. Celeste smiled, her brown eyes reflecting the constellations, but her pulse quickened. Maxwell's presence beside her was a quiet storm, his navy coat unbuttoned, his hands in his pockets, a nervous habit she'd noticed in their months of zoo trips, coffee runs, and late-night calls. Those moments had woven a bond, fragile yet fierce, built on shared vulnerabilities. Her fight against Jeremy's cruelty, his struggle as a single father and CEO. They reached the clearing, a grassy expanse framed by ancient oaks, the city's skyline a distant glow. Lily spun in circles, her laughter ringing, but Maxwell stopped, his gaze locking on Celeste. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice low, carrying a weight that stilled her. She nodded, her throat tight, sensing the shift in the air. Lily plopped onto the grass, pretending to count stars, but her eyes darted to her father, a conspiratorial grin tugging her lips. Maxwell took Celeste's hand, his touch warm, deliberate, sending a jolt through her. "You've changed everything," he said, his dark eyes unguarded, searching hers. "A year ago, you saved my life, Lily's life, in that wreck. I thought I was repaying a debt when I offered to help with your MBA. He paused, his thumb brushing her knuckles, a gesture so intimate it stole her breath. "But it was more," he continued, his voice steady but thick with emotion. "You pulled me out of more than a car, Celeste. You showed me courage, heart, a fire I didn't know I was missing." Her heart pounded, a wild drum, as he dropped to one knee, the velvet box appearing in his hand, Lily scooting closer, her eyes wide with excitement. The box opened, revealing a diamond ring, its facets catching the starlight like a captured galaxy. The park seemed to vanish, the crickets fading, the world narrowing to the man before her and the girl at his side. "Celeste Washington," Maxwell said, his voice unwavering now. "You saved my life once and you've made it worth living every day since. Marry me?" Lily chimed in, her voice a gleeful squeak. "Please, Miss Celeste, be my mom." Tears pricked Celeste's eyes, her breath hitching. She'd fought so long against Jeremy's venom, the weight of bills, the fear of failing Marcus. Maxwell. And Lily had seen her not as an errand girl or a hero, but as a woman with dreams and strength. His gaze held no pity, only love, raw and real, a promise that matched the ring's quiet vow. Her mind flashed to their shared moments, Lily braiding her hair, Maxwell's coffee runs during her study sessions, his confession over tacos about defying his family's legacy. He'd become her rock, her spark, and Lily her joy. Love, a word she dodged, now pulsed undeniable in her chest. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking, then louder. "Yes!" Lily squealed, leaping up to hug her, nearly knocking her over. The crowd nearby, joggers, families, erupted in applause, their cheers a warm tide. Maxwell slid the ring onto her finger, its weight a new anchor, and stood, pulling her into his arms. His embrace was home, his breath warm against her ear as he murmured, "I wanted to repay you, but I just wanted you forever." Celeste laughed through her tears, her hands framing his face, the ring glinting as she kissed him, soft and sure, the stars above a silent witness. Lily squeezed between them, chanting, "I knew it." Her joy was infectious and Celeste's heart swelled full to bursting. Jeremy's cruelty, the bank's cold walls, felt like a distant nightmare. Maxwell's love, Lily's affection, had rewritten her story. As they stood in the clearing hand in hand, The night alive around them, Celeste felt unstoppable. She'd faced a wreck, a tyrant, and her doubts, and emerged here, claimed by a future she'd never dared dream. The ring on her finger was a vow, not just to Maxwell and Lily, but to herself, to never dim her light again. The Atlanta skyline sparkled against the velvet night, its lights a constellation of promise as Celeste Washington stood in the grand ballroom of the Reed estate, her wedding gown shimmering like liquid starlight. 4 years had passed since she'd pulled Maxwell Reed and his daughter Lily from a mangled sedan, a moment that had ignited a journey from survival to triumph. At 32, Celeste was no longer the bank's errand girl, her brilliance now shaping Atlanta's financial landscape as a division leader at Reed Enterprises. Her long black hair cascaded in soft waves, framing her radiant face, her brown eyes alight with a joy she'd once thought impossible. The diamond ring on her finger, a vow sealed under Piedmont Park's stars, gleamed as she squeezed Maxwell's hand, his tailored tuxedo a perfect fit against her side. The ballroom buzzed with life, crystal chandeliers casting golden light, jazz drifting from a live band, guests mingling in a sea of laughter and clinking glasses. Lily, now 12, twirled nearby in a lavender dress, tossing rose petals with a grin that lit the room. Miss Celeste. Mom, she giggled, correcting herself, her pigtails replaced by a sleek braid that echoed Celeste's own. The word Mom hit like a warm tide, flooding Celeste with a love she'd never known she could claim. Her brother Marcus, now a Morehouse Jr., stood by their mother, her frail frame beaming with pride, her hospital days a fading scar. The weight of those years' bills, Jeremy Holt's cruelty, the relentless grind, felt like a distant shadow under this radiant night. Maxwell leaned close, his breath warm against her ear. "You're stunning," he murmured, his dark eyes holding hers, a mix of love and awe. Celeste smiled, her heart full, the memory of his proposal still vivid. A starry night, Lily's squeal, the ring that had changed everything. Their bond had grown through countless moments, late-night study sessions where he quizzed her on financial models, zoo trips with Lily's laughter, quiet dinners where they bared their souls. Maxwell's struggles as the Reed heir, balancing Lily's needs with a corporate empire, had mirrored her fight against Jeremy's venom and her family's burdens. He'd seen her, not as a hero or a victim, but as Celeste, a woman of fire and purpose. The band struck up a slow melody, and Maxwell led her to the dance floor, his hand steady in hers. Guests parted, their applause a soft wave, but the world narrowed to the man before her. "You saved me," he said, his voice low. As they swayed, the gown's silk whispering against his tux, not just from the wreck but from a life half-lived. Celeste's throat tightened, tears pricking her eyes. "You saved me too," she whispered, her fingers tracing his jaw. "You saw me when I couldn't see myself." His smile was a beacon, and as they danced, Lily bounded over, squeezing between them, her laughter a bright note in the music. "Group hug," she declared, and the crowd chuckled, their warmth wrapping the trio like a blanket. Jeremy Holt was a forgotten footnote, fired years ago after Maxwell exposed his mismanagement, embezzled funds, falsified reports, and a trail of harassment. Celeste had risen from his ashes, her MBA from Emory a testament to her grit, her new role at Reed Enterprises a platform for her brilliance. She led a financial division now, her strategies shaping skyscrapers and community projects. Her name whispered with respect in boardrooms. The bank's cold marble floors, where Jeremy had hurled a biscuit at her face, were a distant memory, overshadowed by this night's joy. Marcus caught her eye from the crowd, raising a glass, his grin proud. "You did it, sis," he'd said. Earlier, his voice thick. Her mother's nod beside him echoed the same. The reception spilled into the evening, tables laden with grilled salmon, herbed risotto, and desserts Lily had helped choose. Celeste and Maxwell moved through the crowd, her gown swishing, his arm a steady anchor. Guests toasted their love, their story, a wreck, a rescue, a romance, now legend. Lily tugged Celeste to a quiet corner, pressing a drawing into her hand. A crayon sketch of their family, 3 figures under a starry sky. "It's us," Lily said, her eyes shining. "Forever." Celeste hugged her, tears spilling. Her heart, so full it ached. As the night deepened, they stepped onto the estate's balcony, Atlanta's skyline a glittering backdrop. Celeste's gown caught the breeze, her hair flowing like a dark river. Maxwell stood beside her, Lily leaning against them, her head on Celeste's hip. "Ready for what's next?" Celeste asked, her voice bright, the ring glinting as she squeezed his hand. He grinned, his eyes lit. "With you, always." Lily giggled, chiming, "And me." Their laughter mingled, a vow as binding as the ring. From a spilled biscuit to this blazing moment, Celeste's courage had forged a family, a career, and a love unbreakable. The city stretched before them, alive with possibility, and she felt unstoppable. Medical school loomed, a new challenge she'd conquer, but with Maxwell and Lily beside her, no dream was too big. The stars above bore witness, their light a promise of forever found. What an incredible journey Celeste, Maxwell, and Lily took us on, from a fiery wreck to a love that lit up Atlanta's skyline. What did you think of Celeste's courage, or Maxwell's unwavering support? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and tell us where you're tuning in from. A huge thank you for joining us. Your support fuels these epic stories. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for our latest tales of heart and heroism. Until next time, keep shining like Celeste.